That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet.
When you could not prove anyone right or wrong, all the expertise was contained in the people involved in the conversation.
We hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, that don't sound right, send us a comment. You're one of us.
Your acreage and carry to have your farm. You have some livestock. Are you getting a feral pig to watch your animal?
Get a feral pig to watch the animal.
Interesting.
I think the problem with feral pig is you can't train them.
Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts. I'm Peter Billman.
I'm Cecil Davis.
And we're just trying to have a conversation like we did before the internet. No Googling, no fact-checking. We're just trying to have a conversation with things that we know and the things that other people know and they have told us. We have to decide if we believe them or not, and we generally do.
Yeah, I mean, people write in and give it and tell us about things that happen. We got really a lot of information back on the Emu episode. We did 2 episodes back.
It's rare that we do a follow-up episode so close. Usually we save it for a mailbag or something, but yeah. We had overwhelming response to the Emu episode. And it's probably because the Liberty Mutual commercial, again, it's doing its thing.
The day after that one posted, the secret text line lit up.
The staff went to work.
Yeah, they did. And we got a lot of good information about it.
In fact, it was blowing up while we were at church. And Giorgio usually saves his listening till Monday, but all the spoilers were going out on the staff chat, and so he had to go ahead and listen to it.
And his wife she even knew what we were talking about. She had heard of guard emus before.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So the topic was about guard emus, where people use a bird, they call it an emu, which we have established is a bird.
Right.
Now, our first question that we got back was that we asked each other was, can an emu fly?
Right.
So Chris down in Alabama wrote in very quickly and said,
did he?
He did. And he said emus are flightless.
They're flightless.
So we were correct to assume that.
Okay.
Emus are flightless. But I got several other very interesting pieces back. So the International Brand Ambassador very quickly sent me a podcast, which I have listened to about half of.
Because it's 2 hours long.
It's longer than our podcast.
By 4 times.
Oh, no. This is another one.
Oh, okay.
So he sent me 2 podcasts.
I do want to, for the record, say that I got that right in terms of this other podcast is 4 times longer than ours.
Oh, you got the math right on that.
I got the math right.
You just didn't use it for exaggeration. So Peter's referring back to a previous episode where we got some mail about being able to estimate like 2 times, 4 times, 5 times.
Faster or slower. But really, you never say something is 3 times slower.
But you're right. He did send me that podcast, but he sent me another one too. So he sent me 2 podcasts. The first one was the 4 times long one. I'll address that one first.
Okay.
They were I have not listened to that one at all, but I've seen their shtick before, and they talk about animal fights, and they had matched up a lion against an emu. And I think my money's really on the emu at that point. But ultimately, my money is always on the wild boar.
The feral pig.
The feral pig always wins. Feral pig beats emu every time. It's funny that there's another podcast out there that has talked about matchups between animals. It's not just us.
Right. So that harkens back to our episode 122, Rock, Paper, Python.
That was one of my favorite episodes.
It is. Well, just because I think you have a secret crush on the feral pig.
I do.
So we bring in feral pig versus emu. I think you'd have some serious pushback on this one.
Yeah, no, feral pig wins. Feral pig on North America is at the top of the food chain.
I think you have some. I think we're going to have some serious pushback on this one on the super secret text hotline.
The other podcast that Brent sent, that this is the one I've listened to half of. It is a podcast about the Great Emu War of 1932.
Okay, so I've got a lot of questions.
I've got answers to about a quarter of your questions.
Go ahead and start explaining what the Great Emu War of 1932. Let's start out. Where in history is this?
Okay, we're going to have to use some historical math. So World War I was when? Without Googling it. The 30s? 1930s? No, it was before that. 1910?
Yeah.
20s?
1910s.
Okay.
Yeah.
After World War I,
Yeah.
Australia was trying to settle parts of the outback.
Okay.
And one of the ways they did that is they would give returning veterans a big parcel of land out there to farm.
Was Australia still a penal colony?
I don't think they were penal colony because they evidently sent people to fight in World War WW1.
All right. Okay.
Again, I'd only listened about a quarter of this podcast, so this could all be wrong. They were trying to settle parts of Australia. They would give returning veterans a parcel of land, and so they began to raise wheat. The problem with that is the emus would come and just destroy the fields of wheat.
These are the wild emus.
The wild emus. Not the domesticated guard emus and insurance salesmen that we have in America.
So in Australia, we have emus and ostriches roaming around. Is this true?
Yes, sir. Are ostriches in Australia?
I thought they were. Maybe I'm thinking of the kangaroo, but
I don't know. I don't know where ostriches are native to.
I wonder if emus and ostriches live in peace and harmony.
I don't know.
But anyway, so
the emus did not live in peace and harmony with the wheat farmers.
With the wheat farmers, because they would come and stomp it.
So the wheat farmers requested from the government machine guns to kill the emus. And this is the part where I'm at right now in the podcast. But evidently, it didn't work. The emus won the Great War, the Great Emu War of 1932.
They fight back?
They just were, I guess, unable to eliminate them.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe they were too fast. Or maybe they killed people. I don't know. But there's a podcast.
But there was literally a war between the farmers,
between the wheat farmers,
settling the outback, and the emus.
And from the part I've listened to so far, I don't think the war went the way of the farmer.
For those of you listening, I'm making a very skeptical face at Cecil right now, but I don't know what questions I could ask that I would get a satisfactory answer about this.
I can post the link to that podcast, and maybe somebody can listen to the whole thing since I haven't managed to listen to the whole thing.
That's right. Thanks a lot.
I'm too busy editing this podcast.
That's right.
To listen to other people's podcasts.
Interesting. Okay, so we got the war, the Emu War of 1932.
Right, we did.
Which says that emus are a formidable enemy against wheat farmers armed with machine guns.
Yes.
I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either.
Okay.
I need to finish listening to the podcast, the other podcast. Now, you got an email about
so Brad.
This flightless bird.
So Brad, a longtime listener. In fact, he has listened to all of the episodes. And one of the things he mentions that he used to work in a tack and feed store as a kid. And
what's a tack and feed store for our younger?
I'm not quite. Well, now I know what it is. It's basically it's a store. It's a shop, a store, a retailer that specializes in selling the equipment and food you need to run a farm.
Yes,
and also with horses, having livestock and horses. Tack is generally the equipment you put on a horse to ride it. So whether it's a saddle or the bridle, or I guess spurs for your boot. I don't know, you get spurs there. So he would work at this store, and some of his customers had emu farms.
When was this?
This is when Brad was a kid.
Oh, so this was really?
Yeah. So there were emu farms, and he grew up, if I'm not mistaken, in Walburg, North Carolina.
So this isn't that long ago.
No, it's not long ago at all. Well, I mean, some of our listeners, it's before they were born, but probably about 40 to 45 years ago, he was working at a tack and feed store, and he had some of his customers were emu farmers. And the thing that he said, and this don't sound right, the funniest thing about an emu farm is that their containment area cannot have corners. When building the fence, corners have to be rounded so the emu does not get trapped in the corner. Their eyes are on the sides of their head, and they cannot see directly in front of them.
That don't sound right.
Doesn't it?
Is that true?
This is the thing. I told listener number one this. I said, this is fascinating. This could be another whole episode. He goes, well, there is an emu farm out here in Pufftown. or an old emu farm. So he drove out there and did some reconnaissance for us.
What did he find?
He took a picture of the fence, the containment area. There were no corners.
That's fascinating.
Isn't that crazy?
So if in the Great War of 1932, if they had just put right angles,
yeah, that's right,
on their fences, it would have trapped all their emu.
Right. They could have made a fence, just a couple corrals that had corners. The emus would have ran in and stopped, and
you could shot them with a machine gun,
and then you mow them down or eat them.
That's very interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Scott.
Yeah, that's really good background work for us on that one.
So the other piece that got sent in about emus, which this took a tragic turn, is a bird that looks a little bit like an emu, not an ostrich, but a cassowary.
Cassowary.
Are you familiar with this?
I am not. I've never heard. Well, yeah, I've never heard of a cassowary.
I have never heard of a cassowary either. I had to look it up.
You have to look something. You gotta look this up
because I want to see a picture.
Yeah,
and the cassowary looks like it looks like something that would be in Jurassic Park.
Oh, like the dinosaur.
So what were those? The raptors?
Well, no, I'm thinking of the ones that kind of look like birds.
Yeah.
And they're on their head, it flares out and kind of shakes, and they spit venom on their What
were those called?
Oh, I have no idea.
I can't remember what they call. Yes. Very colorful, very prehistoric looking. And it has a very evidently deadly talon on the back of its foot. And so I got
just like a velociraptor.
Velociraptor. That's what I was trying to think about.
Velociraptor had that particular talon.
Yeah. So this bird, which exists on Earth right now with us, this guy in Florida had one on his farm that killed him.
How big is this bird?
It looks like about the size of an emu.
So, okay, all right.
Except it looks much more prehistoric because it has kind of a bony prominence on its head, and it has this talon on its foot.
Oh, how weird.
And very colorfully. Yeah, so this guy, it wasn't like a cassowary farm. I think it was like one of these mini attractions that you probably see in Florida, like Alligator Farm or Snake Farm. And this guy had a cassowary that you could go out and see. Yeah, cassowary killed him.
These birds are 6 foot tall? Is that what we said about emus, at least, right?
I think the emus are about 6 feet.
Right, in which I evidently did a Bielman effect on you. That I said, there's no way they would bother you. We could take them.
And there's a forthcoming letter about that Bielman effect.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And we've talked about this before in other episodes. I think this is the first time in my life I don't know someone that I don't have more than 1 degree of separation between me and a wild animal.
Yeah.
Because in Cary, there was a guy out on the edge of Cary that had a tiger.
Okay.
And then down near where my grandparents lived, there was somebody down there that had peacocks.
All right. Elephant. Did you have how about elephant? How
Never knew an elephant.
How close are you to an elephant?
I think I've seen tigers, peacocks.
This is like 1 or 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah. Well, I knew where they were. So we'd go out there and see them, or I knew friends that go out and see them, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. So going back to the emu and lion debate, who wins?
I didn't listen to that episode.
Okay. What do you think?
That podcast was
What do you think?
What you said. It's 2 hours long.
2 hours long.
Would you listen to a 2 hour long
I tried,
podcast?
but I couldn't get past the first 10
That's
minutes.
why we care. That's why we only have a 20-minute podcast.
Tell a friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to emu versus lion. What do you think?
Emu.
Why?
Well, after everything I've been sent, the Emu War and the cassowary, Team Emu now.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Except in one situation, and that's feral pig.
Feral pig. So would you have a feral pig as one of your watch animals?
I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, why would you pick anything else to watch your flock?
If I had a warehouse, I would have it guarded with feral pigs. I don't think.
What a stinking warehouse
I hadn't thought about that, Peter. That's a very good point that I had not thought about.
Like, so if you get yourself, you're nice, like you've always wanted to be a farmer.
Me?
In Cary. So when you get your acreage in Cary to have your farm, you have some livestock. Are you getting a feral pig to watch your animal?
Get a feral pig to watch the animals.
Interesting.
I think the problem with feral pig is you can't train them. Evidently, you can train an emu.
Oh, you think?
Don't you think? If they're guarding things.
Well, this was the discussion last time. Is how do you train an emu, or is it just naturally aggressive against the things it doesn't recognize?
I don't know.
Like this cassowary thing.
Oh, and Chris also wrote in, speaking of training, is guard donkeys. We talked a little bit about this.
I've heard. I have heard of farmers always have a donkey in with their livestock because they will stomp and.
So this donkey in question stomped a coyote to death.
I believe that. I've heard of that.
So now you have to question the next logical question, at least for this podcast, is
donkey versus feral pig.
How are you saying that?
Donkey.
Donkey?
Yeah.
Donkey.
You know why I say it that way?
Why?
Because of the movie Shrek.
It just dawned on me. That's why you're saying that.
Donkey.
Yeah, donkey versus emu.
Oh, donkey versus emu.
Yeah.
Who'd you go with?
I think go with the donkey.
I think you go with the donkey. Yeah, I think you do that. Now, donkey, feral pig.
Feral pig, man.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I think you always go with feral pig. I'm not betting against feral pig.
I wonder if we need to.
We need like a Mythbusters to test this thing.
Yeah, but that's going to hurt animals, and that's going to be against.
Well,
that's going to be against kind of our.
Yeah, no animals were hurt in the recording of this podcast.
Of this podcast, that's right.
Well, that's what I've got on the follow-up for the emu.
I think that's an extensive history of the emu and the war.
So I got one more question before we land this bird.
Okay.
Can you ride an emu?
Ooh, no, I think you can ride an ostrich, right?
Don't they have like kids that ride ostriches?
I don't think they're kids. I think they're adults. They have races that you can
ostrich rodeo or something.
I think I've seen this. Oh no, maybe it was a camel. I feel like I've seen this on Amazing Race. You ever watch that TV show?
I feel like I've seen somebody ride a flamingo, right?
Not a flamingo, an ostrich.
Ostrich. Oh yeah,
I think I've
seen not flamingo.
I think I've seen someone ride. I don't think they had a contestant do it because it's a little dicey. Because I imagine if you fell off, they would stomp you to death.
Yes.
But I think I've seen them do it. Now, the question you're asking, can you ride an emu?
Right. If you ride an ostrich, you can ride an emu, right?
I think it just depends on how heavy the animal is.
I feel like I've seen somebody ride an ostrich. I don't know why I feel like I've seen that.
I feel like I've seen that too.
I feel like we're going to get even more flightless bird-related mail.
This might be a new series for us, the Flightless Bird series.
We've moved from chickens to flightless birds.
We still need listener number 1 on for our chicken episode.
We came very close tonight.
Did you?
Yeah.
What happened?
We had the early morning. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, it don't sound right. Nothing about this is sounding right.
This is another episode of That Don't Sound Right.
But you've come to the end of this emu follow-up.
Well, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. If this is your first time and enjoyed the conversation, would you consider hitting the subscribe button on the platform you listen with? Also, if you're that long-time listener, give us a rating, leave us a review so others can easily find us and join the conversation. Do you really want to leave people out of this one?
Out of what?
Out of this conversation about emus.
No. This has been a conversation starter.
Then tag us.
All right. That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSR Podcast in conjunction with Camel City Studios. I am your co-host and sound engineer, Cecil. Peter is your other host and your web designer. Camille is your barista. Emily does your graphic design. Ella does your Instagram. Giorgio tests our merchandise. Brent is our international brand ambassador. And as always, listener number 1 is Scott. So until next week, keep talking.
And stay curious.